Castilians are so fiery.
Yes, Cousin Manuela was a pyromaniac.
It has been over 60 years since the Addams Family first aired on ABC. 2 seasons, 64 episodes built on one subversive idea. The family everyone feared was the healthiest one on television. Gomez and Morticia never fought. The butler was loyal. The relatives were welcome. A psychologist said it on the record. What happened to the people who played them is considerably darker than anything that happened inside that mansion. Carolyn Jones as Morticia Addams. Carolyn Jones was born on April 28, 1930 in Amarillo, Texas. She was 34 when the show premiered, already an Oscar nominee for The Bachelor Party, a Golden Globe winner, and a woman who had worked with Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, and Kirk Douglas. Charles Addams personally chose her for Morticia. What she did with the role was remarkable. The skirt was so narrow she could barely walk, so she developed what she called a minimum of movement, and that restriction became elegance. Her voice made every line sound like an incantation. She was the gravitational center of the show. Her second husband was Aaron Spelling. They married in 1953, divorced in 1964, the same year Morticia arrived. Spelling went on to become the most prolific television producer in history. Jones went on to become Morticia. But here is where things get devastating. In 1981, Jones was diagnosed with colon cancer. She told almost no one. She continued working on the CBS soap Capital, playing scenes in a wheelchair, telling the public she had stomach ulcers. She married her boyfriend Peter Bailey Britton in September 1982, knowing time was short. Carolyn Jones died on August 3, 1983, at her home in West Hollywood. She was 53 years old. The woman who played television's most serene character spent her final years performing composure to the very end, in a way Morticia herself might have understood. Ted Cassidy as Lurch. Ted Cassidy was born on July 31, 1932 in Pittsburgh. He was 6'9" with a voice like a cathedral organ. What most people do not know is where he was 11 months before the pilot. On November 22, 1963, Cassidy was a staff announcer at WFAA Radio in Dallas, part of the live coverage of the Kennedy assassination, among the first to interview eyewitnesses. Less than a year later, he was auditioning for a butler in a comedy about a haunted family. That pivot from Dealey Plaza to the Addams Mansion is one of the strangest in television history. Lurch was written as mute. During the pilot, Cassidy ad-libbed 2 words, "You rang?" The line became a national catchphrase. He released a novelty single called The Lurch on Capitol Records. He sometimes played Thing as a left hand instead of a right, just to see if anyone would notice. But Cassidy lived with acromegaly, a growth hormone disorder that gave him the frame that made his career and the heart complications that ended it. In January 1979, he had surgery to remove a benign heart tumor. Complications arose at home. Ted Cassidy died on January 16, 1979. He was 46 years old. His narration for The Incredible Hulk continued airing for years. His voice kept working long after he could not. Thing. Thing appeared in 61 of 64 episodes, credited as itself. No face, no body, no dialogue. One of the most recognizable characters in television history. Charles Addams originally conceived Thing as a severed head. The producers changed it to a hand because a decapitated head would never survive network standards in 1964. That single decision created one of the most inventive recurring gags in sitcom history. Thing was played by Ted Cassidy under a separate contract, lying on a wheeled trolley beneath camera line, arm inserted through the bottom of a box. When Lurch and Thing shared scenes, assistant director Jack Vogelin stepped in, literally lending a hand. Thing outlived every actor who played it. Christopher Hart brought the character to life in the 1991 and 1993 films. Victor Dorobantu performed Thing in Netflix's Wednesday. A hand, no voice, no face. 62 years of relevance. That is a kind of immortality most fully embodied characters never achieve. Vito Scotti as Sam Picasso. Vito Scotti was born on January 26, 1918 in San Francisco. Raised in Naples until age 7. He was known as a man of 1,000 faces, more than 200 screen appearances across 50 years. On The Addams Family, he played multiple characters across 4 episodes. He did the same on Gilligan's Island, The Flying Nun, and Fantasy Island, vanishing into roles so completely that audiences never realized they were watching the same man twice. But here's where it gets interesting for a certain generation. If you have seen The Godfather, you have seen Vito Scotti. He played Nazarene, the baker who asks Don Corleone for a favor at the wedding. If you grew up watching Disney, you heard him, the Italian cat in the Aristocats. If you watched Columbo, you saw him 5 separate times as 5 separate characters. His daughter Carmen was one of the first patients to undergo pioneering spinal implant surgery. Scotti became a dedicated fundraiser for the Carmen Fund. He died on June 5, 1996 of lung cancer at 78. His final screen appearance was in Get Shorty opposite John Travolta. 200 roles, 50 years, a face you recognized every time without ever quite remembering his name. Eddie Quillen as Clyde Arbogast. Eddie Quillen was born on March 31, 1907 in Philadelphia. His career started at age 7 in a vaudeville act called The Rising Generation. By the time he appeared in 5 Addams Family episodes, he had already worked with Clark Gable in Mutiny on the Bounty, Henry Fonda in The Grapes of Wrath, Gene Kelly in Brigadoon, and Max Sennett in silent shorts from the 1920s. He was not a star. He was something more durable. A character actor who worked in every decade from the 1920s through the 1980s, never famous enough to be recognized and never out of work long enough to quit. A close friendship with Michael Landon gave him steady late career work on Little House on the Prairie. He never married. He died of cancer on July 19, 1990 at 83. Eddie Quillen worked for 68 years. He never had a role that defined him. He had a career that defined what it means to keep showing up. Blossom Rock as Grandmama. Blossom Rock was born Edith Marie Blossom McDonald on August 21, 1895 in Philadelphia. She was 69 when the show premiered, the oldest cast member by far, hidden beneath a fright wig that took an hour to apply. Here is what almost nobody knew at the time. Her younger sister was Jeanette MacDonald, one of the biggest movie stars of the 1930s, the queen of MGM musicals. When Blossom entered Hollywood in 1937, she deliberately took the stage name Marie Blake to avoid writing her sister's fame. She worked at the same studio and never used the connection. Small roles, bit parts. The older sister in the longer shadow. Jeanette MacDonald always considered Blossom the more talented of the two. She watched The Addams Family every week until her death in 1965. Stardom arrived for Blossom Rock at 69. It lasted 2 seasons. In December 1967, she suffered a stroke that took away her speech. When the cast reunited for the 1977 reunion film, she watched from her room at the Motion Picture Country House. Blossom Rock died on January 14, 1978 at 82, the same calendar date her famous sister had died 13 years earlier. The woman who found her greatest role at an age when most careers are finished spent her final decade unable to speak. Felix Silla as Cousin It. Felix Silla was born on January 11, 1937 near Rome, Italy, 3 feet 11 inches tall. You never saw his face, not once in 17 episodes beneath Cousin It's floor-length hair and bowler hat. He came to America in 1955 with Ringling Brothers, a bareback rider, trapeze artist, and tumbler. What followed was one of the most extraordinary stunt resumes in Hollywood. He played an Ewok in Return of the Jedi. He was Tweaky in Buck Rogers. He was a dink in Spaceballs. He did stunt work on E.T., Indiana Jones, The Towering Inferno, and Poltergeist. He played an Emperor Penguin alongside Danny DeVito in Batman Returns. For the men who grew up in the 70s and 80s, Felix Silla was physically present in some of the most important films of their childhood, and they never knew it. He married his wife Sue in 1965, 56 years together, 3 children. Their son Michael died in March 2020 at 45. 13 months later, Felix followed. Pancreatic cancer, April 16, 2021 at 84. A circus performer from a village outside Rome who became an Ewok, a robot, a dink, and a pile of hair named It. That is not a career. That is an adventure. Ken Weatherwax as Pugsley Addams. Ken Weatherwax was born on September 29, 1955 in Los Angeles. Cast at 9, his aunt was Ruby Keeler. His uncles trained Lassie. His first job was a toothpaste commercial. His second was Pugsley. The show ended when he was 11. What followed is the story of almost every child star of that era. Typecast, bullied at school, kicked out of several schools, joined the army at 17. At 21, he returned for the 1977 reunion. Except now, Pugsley was tall and muscular, and the contrast told the entire story of what those years had contained. He worked behind the camera as a grip and set builder. He and Lisa Loring, Wednesday, his on-screen sister, remained lifelong friends. Ken Weatherwax died on December 7, 2014 of a heart attack. He was 59. For men in this audience, that number lands differently. It is not old enough. His family could not afford a burial. Strangers launched a crowdfunding campaign to have him interred at Valhalla Memorial Park. Fans paid to bury Pugsley Addams, proof that the connection between an audience and a child actor does not expire, even when everything else does. Lisa Loring as Wednesday Addams. Lisa Loring was born on February 16, 1958 on the Kwajalein Atoll in the Marshall Islands. Both parents served in the Navy. They divorced after her birth. She started modeling at 3, was cast as Wednesday at 5½. She later said she learned to memorize before she could read. Wednesday Addams, pigtails, deadpan stare, headless doll named Marie Antoinette. Loring conveyed all of it at 6, with a delivery so precise that every actress who followed, Christina Ricci, Jenna Ortega, acknowledged the debt. Ortega paid direct homage. Wednesday's viral 2022 dance references Loring's Drew Frug from 1965, 57 years later. But here is where the real story begins. Her mother died of alcoholism in 1974. Lisa was 16. She married at 15. She married twice more. She struggled with substance abuse. She played Cricket Montgomery on As the World Turns from 1980 to 1983, the only significant role of her adult career. She attended fan conventions faithfully, speaking with warmth about the show that had been the closest thing to a functional family she had experienced. On January 24, 2023, Lisa Loring suffered a massive stroke. Her daughters held her hands for 3 days before removing life support. She died on January 28, 2023. She was 64. The girl who defined Wednesday Addams at 5 spent the rest of her life looking for what she found inside that mansion. Jackie Coogan as Uncle Fester. Jackie Coogan was born on October 26, 1914 in Los Angeles. At age 6, he starred alongside Charlie Chaplin in The Kid, becoming the most famous child in the world. He earned an estimated $4 million before 18. When he reached adulthood, the money was gone. His mother and stepfather had spent all of it. Coogan sued, and the case resulted in the Coogan Law of 1939, which protects child actors' earnings to this day. Every child actor with a protected trust fund has one because of what happened to Jackie Coogan. He built that legacy through suffering. He served in World War II as a glider pilot in Burma. 40 years after The Kid, he found second fame as Uncle Fester, bald, bulging, lighting a bulb in his mouth. As far from the beautiful child as any role could be. He struggled with the contrast, but what he gave the show was irreplaceable. Jackie Coogan died on March 1, 1984 of cardiac arrest at 69. He lost everything, sued the people who took it, changed a law, fought a war, and found a second career inside a light bulb. If the Addams Family is about anything, it is about the idea that strangeness is not the opposite of love. Coogan lived that thesis before the show existed. John Astin as Gomez Addams. John Astin was born on March 30, 1930 in Baltimore. He is 95 years old in 2026. He is the last one. Every other principal cast member is gone. He has outlived them all, including the actors who played his children. He originally auditioned for Lurch. The producers saw Gomez instead, a cigar-chomping, sword-fighting patriarch who became uncontrollably passionate whenever Morticia spoke French. Gomez was the first husband on American television openly, joyfully in love with his wife. In 1964, that was quietly revolutionary. He played the Riddler on Batman. He had a recurring role on Night Court. He was nominated for an Academy Award for directing the short film Prelude. His second wife was Patty Duke. He adopted her son, a boy named Sean, who grew up to play Samwise Gamgee in Lord of the Rings. Gomez Addams is Samwise's father. That is one of Hollywood's most improbable family trees. He taught theater at Johns Hopkins for 20 years, retiring in 2021. He is a practicing Buddhist and an avid student of Edgar Allan Poe, attending Baltimore's annual Poe birthday celebration with the regularity of a man who finds something sacred in the macabre, which is exactly what Gomez Addams would do. Of the show, he has said, "We just did 2 years, and it's been on the air for more than 50 years. I regard it as good fortune." John Astin is 95. He has a film listed on IMDb for 2026. The man who played Gomez Addams is still here. The Addams Family ran for 2 seasons, 64 episodes, and one idea: that the family everyone considered monstrous was the only one on television that functioned. One woman died at 53, concealing her diagnosis to the end. One man was dead at 46 from the condition that made him famous. One hand outlived every actor who played it. One man left 200 roles and no household name. One man worked 68 years without a defining role, and that was the role. One woman found stardom at 69 and lost her speech at 72. One man hid inside every costume of a generation's childhood. One boy was buried by strangers who still loved Pugsley. One girl defined a character at 5 and spent her life looking for what the mansion gave her. One boy had everything stolen, changed the law, fought a war, and became Uncle Fester. And one man, the last one, turned 2 seasons into good fortune and is still here at 95. The show said the strange ones loved the hardest. It was right. And the people who proved it deserved more than 2 seasons. Every one of them.